In the hush of a marriage, fraying at the edges, Maya Reyes clung to the illusions of loyalty and love. Her world, a careful weave of unspoken truths and lingering regrets. Whispers of betrayal echoed in the empty rooms of her home, urging her to unearth the secrets buried beneath years of devotion, where trust once bloomed, but now withered under suspicion's shadow. As doubts coiled tighter, she reached for the one tether to her past. Maya's fingers traced the worn edges of the photograph album, its leather cover soft under her touch, like a familiar hand. Maya's fingers traced the worn edges of the photograph album, its leather cover soft under her touch, like a familiar hand. She sat at the kitchen table, afternoon light slanting through the blinds, casting long shadows across the pages. The house was quiet, too quiet, the kind that amplified the hum of the fridge like a distant warning. A client dinner, he'd said. Not this casual group, shot with strangers, grinning like they owned the world. Her chest tightened, the comfort fraying at the edges. She flipped back, forward, searching for alignment. Another inconsistency. The family portrait from 2 summers ago. All of them posed in the backyard. But Ethan's eyes, distant even then, like he was already elsewhere. The nagging drip she'd ignored for months swelled into a quiet pulse. Was it nothing? Or was he curating these memories, hiding pieces in the spaces between? Lena's voice from last night's call flickered in her thoughts. Something doesn't add up, Maya. Check the details. Trust in Ethan, once rock solid, felt like shifting sand now. She closed the album gently, but the weight lingered, pressing against her ribs. Were those promises ever real? Or just another layer of the life he'd built around her? The question hung there, unanswered, pulling her toward the edge of doubt. Later that afternoon, the light still slanting through the kitchen blinds, Maya and Lena sat at the cluttered counter, mugs of cooling tea between them. Maya's fingers traced the rim of her cup, her mind replaying Ethan's latest story from last night. Another late meeting, another vague excuse about work pressures. It had felt off, like a puzzle piece forced into the wrong spot. Lena leaned forward, her dark eyes sharp but gentle, the friend who'd known Maya since scraped knees and shared secrets. Maya, listen. Ethan's tales, they don't line up. Remember that trip he said was for the conference? The dates he mentioned don't match what he told you about the hotel. She paused, watching Maya's face tighten. It's not just forgetfulness. I've seen it before, in my own mess of a divorce. Patterns like that hide something. Maya's chest constricted, a familiar anxiety blooming, hot, insistent, like thorns under her skin. What if digging meant unraveling everything? The marriage, the kids' steady world, the neighbors' approving nods. Silence had always been her shield, polite and unassuming. But Lena's words gnawed her thoughts. Inconsistencies, patterns. I don't know, Lena. Maybe he's just stressed. We've been through worse. Lena shook her head, not pushing too hard, but her voice carried the weight of quiet insistence. Stressed doesn't rewrite timelines. Check the files, Maya. Those old statements in the desk drawer. The ones you never opened because he said they were boring tax stuff. Print them out. See for yourself. I'm not saying it's the end, but you deserve the facts. The word facts echoed in Maya's mind, pulling her from the fog of doubt. She glanced at the home office door across the hall, half open, innocent. Her pulse quickened, anxiety twisting into something sharper, a reluctant spark of resolve. What if the truth was right there, waiting? She stood, legs unsteady, and crossed to the desk. The computer hummed to life under her fingers. the screen's glow harsh against her paling skin. As the printer whirred, spitting out crisp sheets, Maya scanned the first page. Bank statements, transfers she didn't recognize, hotel receipts from cities Ethan had never mentioned. Her breath caught. Strange, damning invitations that painted a picture of secrets tucked away in black ink. The legal file stack grew in her hands, heavy with implication, its edges sharp against her palm. Lena watched from the doorway, a silent ally now, their bond tightening like a strategy in the making. Trust in Ethan frayed at the edges. This was no longer just talk. Maya's thoughts raced. Could she face what these pages whispered? The question hung, unanswered, as she clutched the papers closer, the silence cracking around her. That same evening, Maya's hands trembled as she pried open the bottom drawer of Ethan's desk, the one he'd always kept locked with that cheap brass key hidden under the blotter. The office smelled of stale coffee and old paper, the late afternoon light slanting through the blinds like accusing fingers. She'd told herself this was just tidying up, nothing more. But Lena's words echoed in her head. Check the hidden spots, Maya. Stories don't add up on their own. Her fingers sifted through crumpled receipts and forgotten tax forms, anxiety knotting in her chest. What if it's nothing? What if I'm imagining this rift? Then her nails caught on a manila envelope, tucked behind a stack of yellowed files. No label, just sealed with aged tape. She tore it open, heart thudding. Inside, a crisp legal document, the kind with official stamps and notarized signatures. Her eyes scanned the header. Divorce petition, filed 2 years ago. Not hers. Ethan's name, bold at the top, and below it, a woman's. Some colleague from his old firm? No, wait. The details blurred as she read. Admissions of an affair, financial discrepancies, a secret account siphoning their joint savings, dates that overlapped with their happy vacations, the ones where he'd vanish for hours, blaming work stress. Proof, black and white, that he'd lied about everything. The late nights, the business trips, the vows he'd renewed just last anniversary. Her breath hitched, anxiety spiking into something sharper, colder, fear, not just of him, but of the unraveling. This paper wasn't a ghost. It was a bomb, ticking in her grip. Thoughts raced. How long? Why hide this? The kids' faces flashed. Would they see her as the fool who'd missed it all? She clutched the document tighter, the edges crinkling like her crumbling trust. Ethan was the rock, the provider. This said he was a fraud. Silence had been her shield, swallowing doubts to keep the peace. But now, this demanded she shatter it. She shoved the envelope into her bag, pulse roaring. Call Lena. Get more. Bank statements. Emails. She couldn't stop here. This was the crack letting light in, forcing her to move. But as she straightened, staring at the empty drawer, the question hung. Was this enough to upend everything, or just the start of a deeper fall? A few days later, the fluorescent hum of Daniel Hartman's office buzzed like a distant swarm, casting sharp shadows across the cluttered desk. Maya sat rigid, her fingers twisting the strap of her purse. The weight of last night's discovery, a crumpled hotel receipt from Ethan's jacket, pressing against her ribs. Confusion swirled in her chest, thick and disorienting, as if the room's stale air had thickened into fog. Daniel leaned forward, his wire-rimmed glasses catching the light. Maya, listen. Betrayal isn't just emotional, it's evidentiary. To make this official, to file for separation or contest assets, you need a paper trail, dates, times, witnesses, no assumptions. She blinked, her mind replaying the photo album's discrepancies. The way Ethan's alibis had frayed like old thread. But what if it's not enough? These scraps, emails, receipts, they feel so flimsy, like I'm chasing shadows. He slid a manila folder across the desk, its edges crisp, unmarked, except for a single tab labeled Evidence Log. The symbol of it hit her. Not just paper, but a container for chaos. A way to trap the intangible hurt into something solid. Start here, Daniel said, flipping it open to reveal lined sheets and forms. Systematize it. List every inconsistency. The trips he claimed were business, the calls you overheard. Cross-reference with bank statements, phone records. I'll guide you on subpoenas if needed. Maya's hand hovered, then took the pen he offered. Her pulse raced, doubt clawing at her resolve. Could she do this? Turn the raw ache of Ethan's lies into lines on a page? She glanced at her phone, a quick text to Lena. Meeting lawyer. Starting the list. Feels real now. No reply from Ethan, of course. He'd been dodging her calls, his distance a growing chasm. First entry, Daniel prompted, his voice steady, pragmatic. The receipt, date, location, amount. Note why it contradicts his story. She wrote, the pen scratching like a confession. Hotel Meridian, 3:15. Business dinner, he'd said. But no client names, no follow-up. Her handwriting steadied as she added, witness. Lena saw him leave early. The fog lifted inch by inch, confusion yielding to rhythm. Fact 1. Fact 2. The unexplained withdrawals. By the time she outlined potential witnesses, Lena, maybe Ethan's old colleague, the folder felt heavier in her lap, a shield forming. Daniel nodded approval. This is how you reclaim the narrative. No more silence. Maya closed the file, its weight grounding her. But as she stood to leave, the question lingered, unspoken. Did she have the discipline to keep filling it? To alchemize this pain into proof that could shatter everything? That evening, the kitchen light hums softly, casting long shadows across the table where the photograph album lies open, its pages splayed like veins. Maya traces a finger over a faded image. Thanksgiving, 3 years back. The kids' faces glow with candlelight. Plates piled high with turkey, she carved alone. Ethan's chair empty, his absence a ghost. She dressed up in excuses. Cut to the memory. Laughter bubbles from the boys as they chase peas across their plates. Where's Dad? Little Sophia asks, her fork pausing midair. Maya's smile tightens, the warmth of the room pressing in like a too small sweater. He's just tied up at work, sweetie. Saving the day, like always. She ruffles Sophia's hair, ignoring the knot in her chest, the way the word work tasted like ash. The table chatter fills the void. Stories of school plays, neighbor gossip, but her eyes flick to the empty seat, willing it full. He'll be home soon, she tells herself, passing the mashed potatoes. This is what families do. Hold the line. The clink of silverware drowns the silence. But inside, it's a roar. Back in the now, Maya's hand trembles on the album. Nostalgia tugs, a dull ache for those stolen evenings, the illusion of wholeness. But the photo lies. Ethan wasn't working late. He was unraveling elsewhere. Threads she pretended not to see. I told myself it was love, she whispers to the empty room, voice raw, like gravel underfoot, swallowing the quiet to keep us safe. For the kids, for me, the words hang, heavy with the years of deflection, the fear that speaking would crack the facade and leave nothing but shards. Lena's voice echoes from last night's call. You don't have to carry it alone anymore. Trust in Ethan has eroded to silt at the bottom of her heart, but Lena's steady presence, that's a lifeline, pulling her toward clarity. No more excuses. The album snaps shut, a decisive thud. Fear twisted silence into self-deception, but now it fuels something sharper. Resolve. She'll lay it bare. For Sophia's wide eyes. For the truth she owes herself. Can she shatter the quiet without losing them all? The question lingers, unanswered, as she rises, the closed door to the study waiting like a threshold. A few nights later, the kitchen light hums like a distant accusation, casting long shadows across the granite counters. Maya stands by the island, her fingers trembling as she slides the crumpled bank statement toward Ethan. It's partial, just a transfer to an unfamiliar account, dated back 2 years, when he claimed those late nights were for work emergencies. Her heart thuds, a dull drum in her chest. This is real, she thinks. I saw it in the drawer. He swore was just old receipts. Ethan glances at the paper, then up at her, his face a mask of weary patience. Maya, what's this about? You went through my things again. His voice is soft, almost pitying, like he's talking to a child who's wandered too far. I found it, she says, her words clipped, forcing them out before doubt can swallow them. The dates match the trips you said were for the firm. But this is to someone named Carla. Who is she, Ethan? He sighs, leaning back against the closed door to the pantry, the wood solid behind him, like a barrier he won't let her breach. The door's always been there, a silent sentinel in their arguments, locking away the mess until it festers. You're twisting this, love. Remember that conference in Denver? I told you about the client mix-up. Carla's just an accountant. Freelance. You must have misread the memo I left on the desk. His eyes hold hers. Steady, convincing. He's right. A whisper slithers in her mind. I do forget things lately. The kids' schedules, the grocery list. No. She shakes her head, gripping the edge of the counter. The amounts don't add up. Thousands, Ethan. Over months. And the hotel receipts. I cross-checked with Lena. They weren't for conferences. Lena? He straightens, a flicker of irritation cracking the calm. Of course she'd say that. She's always stirring trouble. Hasn't liked me since we married. You're letting her poison you, Maya. Think about it. You've been stressed. The kids' school stuff. Maybe you saw what you wanted to see. He steps closer, his hand reaching for hers, but she pulls back. The air thickens, her skin prickling with a tingling anxiety that starts in her chest and spreads like static. Am I imagining the gaps? The question coils in her thoughts, unbidden. The photographs upstairs, the ones she sorted yesterday. Smiles that now look staged. If he's right, if her memory's the liar, then what else has she invented? The closed door looms in her periphery, a symbol of all the secrets they've bolted shut. Ethan opens it now, rummaging for a coffee mug as if nothing's amiss. But the latch clicks like a judgment. She turns away, the statement crumpling in her fist. Doubt gnaws deeper, but beneath it, a spark. Inconsistencies she can't unsee. She needs Daniel's clarity, Lena's ear. The silence between them shatters, jagged, and she wonders if she can trust the pieces to form truth. The next morning, the kitchen light buzzed like a trapped fly, casting harsh shadows on the cluttered counter, where Maya hunched over a half-empty coffee mug. Her fingers twisted the handle, knuckles white, as the front door clicked open. Lena's voice cut through the quiet, urgent, laced with that no-nonsense edge that always pulled Maya back from the brink. Maya, she's here. I found her. Ethan's old flame from college. Said she'd talk if it meant stopping the lies. Maya's stomach lurched. She straightened, cheeks flushing hot with a mix of dread and something sharper, like embarrassment at her own naivety. How had she missed this? All those late nights Ethan claimed were work, the vague smiles. Now, this woman, Sarah, Lena had texted, stood in her doorway, mid-40s, sharp-eyed and unapologetic, clutching a worn phone like a weapon. Lena guided her to the table, pulling out a chair with a scrape that echoed Maya's fracturing resolve. "Show her," Lena urged, her hand firm on Maya's shoulder. The touch grounded her, turning their friendship into something tactical, a frontline alliance against the fog Ethan had spun. Sarah slid the phone across the table. Old messages, from 10 years back, but it didn't end clean. "He promised me the world while you two were building yours." The screen glowed under the bulb's glare. Texts time-stamped during family vacations, Maya remembered as perfect. "Missed you tonight. Wife's asleep." Heart emojis, excuses, overlaps with Maya's life like cracks in a foundation. Maya scrolled, breath catching. Confusion flooded her, embarrassed heat rising as she pictured herself, oblivious, serving dinner while this shadow lingered. This proves it?" Her voice cracked, small in the room's tension. External pressure squeezed. Ethan's car wasn't due home for hours, but the kids' laughter from upstairs felt like a ticking bomb. What if this shattered them all? Her family, the fragile shell she'd guarded with silence. Sarah nodded, voice steady. "He lied to us both. Left me when things got real. But the pattern's the same. Gaslights, deflects. You deserve the full story." Lena leaned in, eyes fierce. "No more doubting, Maya. This is your proof. We build from here. Documents, timelines. Confront him." Maya's thumb hovered over the screen, the old words blurring. The embarrassment ebbed, replaced by a burning clarity, a righteous fire in her chest. She wasn't the fool. She was the one who'd been played. Responsibility settled heavy. For her truth, for her kids' unpoisoned future. She pocketed the phone, resolve hardening like steel. "Tell me everything," she said, voice low, commanding. Action surged through her veins. No retreat, no self-lies. But as Sarah spoke, detailing stolen weekends and whispered regrets, the question hung unspoken in the air. Was this enough to shatter the silence without torching what little family remained? Weeks later, the living room felt like a courtroom, under the dim glow of a single lamp. Shadows stretching across the faces of Maya's family, her 2 teenage children, wide-eyed on the couch. Lena, perched on the armrest with a nod of quiet support. Daniel, standing by the window like a sentinel. And Ethan, rigid in his armchair, jaw set against the storm he knew was coming. Maya stood at the center, her hands steady, despite the knot in her gut. No more hiding. The photograph album lay discarded on the coffee table, its curated lies obsolete. In her grip was the legal file, a thick stack of crisp pages bound in black, the weight of it grounding her as she opened it like a book of final judgments. "I've spent months piecing this together," Maya began, her voice even, slicing through the heavy air. She flipped to the first tab, bank statements, timestamps glaring like accusations. "Ethan, you said the trips were for work, but here, withdrawals from our joint account, hotel receipts in another city, every other weekend for 2 years. Not conferences, not deadlines." She slid copies across the table, watching them fan out. Her son's eyes flicked to his father, confusion hardening into something sharper. Ethan's fingers tightened on the armrest, but he said nothing, his evasion a familiar ghost. Tension coiled as she turned pages, the rustle loud in the silence. Determination fueled her, each fact a step away from the suffocating politeness that had defined them. "And this," she continued, holding up emails printed from his hidden folder, "conversations with her, promises, Lies you told me to keep me quiet. Lena leaned forward, her presence a anchor. Daniel's nod from the corner confirmed the admissibility, the strategy they'd mapped in hushed calls. But the room's air thickened. Her daughter's whisper, "Dad?" exposing the fractures Maya had feared. Shame flickered in her chest, but she pressed on, outlining the divorce implications, the custody terms Daniel had drafted. Silence protected nothing. It let this rot us from inside. Ethan shifted, eyes meeting hers at last. Regret? Defiance? "Maya, this is," he started, voice low, but she cut him off, closing the file with a soft thud that echoed like a gavel. "No more deflections. The truth isn't a weapon, it's the only way forward. For us, for the kids." The family hung in limbo, judgments unspoken, the facade cracking, but not yet fallen. Could this raw honesty rewrite their story, or would it bury them all? The following day, the dim kitchen light cast long shadows across the oak table, where the stack of legal documents lay like a battlefield of ink and paper. Maya stood rigid, her fingers still gripping the edges of the top folder, the one she'd unearthed from Ethan's desk drawer weeks ago. The envelope inside was torn clean through, its seam split as if the truth had clawed its way out. "This isn't just a mistake, Ethan," she said, her voice steady, a quiet resolve honed from nights of cataloging lies. "It's years, and I can't pretend anymore." Ethan leaned against the counter, his face a mask cracking at the edges. He didn't explode, not yet. Instead, his eyes narrowed, bitter regret twisting into reproach. "And what now, Maya? You dragged this out in front of the kids, the neighbors? For what? To feel righteous?" His words hung heavy, laced with the old evasion, but this time they stung less. He glanced at the severed envelope, the one that held bank statements proving his secret accounts, his absences, not just work, but escape. "I did it to keep us afloat. You think exposing this fixes anything? It just buries us deeper." Maya's chest tightened, determination flaring into something tauter. A wire pulled to its limit. She weighed it all, their shared history flickering like old film reels in her mind. The family dinners, where she'd smoothed his silences, the cost of silence now etched in her bones. Lena's voice echoed from earlier, a steady anchor. "You've got the proof. Now claim your line." Daniel's pragmatic nod in the lawyer's office. "Boundaries aren't destruction. They're survival." But here, face to face, the choice loomed. Forgive and fold the truth away, or draw the line and let the fracture show. "I won't bury it," she said finally, her words measured. Not a shout, but a declaration. Ethan's shoulders slumped, defiance flickering out into weary defeat. But he didn't reach for her, didn't beg. The bond between them stretched thin, new boundaries forming in the space he'd left empty for so long. As he turned toward the door, murmuring about space, Maya touched the torn envelope one last time. Could she forgive without denying what it revealed? The question lingered, unanswered, as the door clicked shut behind him. She exhaled, the weight shifting. Not gone, but hers to carry forward. In the quiet aftermath, Maya sat at the scarred oak desk in the dim corner of her living room, the late afternoon light slanting through half-drawn blinds like hesitant fingers. The house felt too still now, the echoes of yesterday's confrontation lingering in the air. Ethan's defiant silence, the children's wide-eyed confusion, the family's fractured gaze. Her hands trembled slightly as she opened the diary, its leather cover worn from years of half-truths scribbled in haste. This was no longer just a repository for polite nothings. It had become her anchor, the one unyielding witness to the unraveling. The pen hovered, ink beating at the tip. "I did it," she wrote, the words stark against the page. I stood in front of them all and laid it bare. The lies, the hidden accounts, the years he'd chipped away at us like a thief in the night. Tension coiled in her chest, a vice tightening with the memory. Ethan's face, crumpling, not in remorse, but evasion, the way the room had held its breath before splintering into accusations and tears. Had she shattered everything? The family she'd poured her life into, the fragile unity that neighbors envied from their manicured lawns. Gone, reduced to whispers and slammed doors. And now? What was left but this empty shell of a home? The bed too vast, the future a void staring back. Her breath caught, shallow and ragged, as doubt flooded in. What if silence had been the kinder cage? The fear gnawed. She'd exposed the rot. But at what cost? No more pretending, no safety in the polite fog. The children might never forgive her for ripping the veil, for choosing truth over their father's polished facade. Ethan's calls had stopped, his absence final, a door closed forever. Yet Lena's text from earlier hummed in her pocket. You were brave, we're here. And Daniel's measured voice echoed from their last meeting. You've got the documents, build from here. Supports, not saviors, but real. She pressed on, the pen moving steadier now. The public truth didn't destroy us. It ended the deception that was already killing me. Relief seeped in, slow as dawn, easing the knot in her throat. She listed the next steps. Therapy for the kids, a smaller apartment maybe. Lena over for coffee to map the logistics. No grand revenge, just quiet reclamation. The diary filled with her choices, each line a brick in a new foundation. Honest, unapologetic. Closing the cover, Maya leaned back, the weight lifting just enough to breathe. Dignity wasn't in the unbroken family. It was here, in these pages, her story finally her own. But as shadows lengthened across the room, she wondered, could this scripted resolve hold her steady, or would the emptiness pull her under?